Alrighty, let's see. Should be live now. There we go. Okay. So yeah, what's up everybody? My name's Chance. For those of you that may be new or watching the VOD back over and you're new, hello, and welcome. For those of you that are returning, it's been some time. Today we're going to be diving into AstroPhysher, and we'll be doing some live devlogging, basically just developing the game. Since this is our first live stream of the game and our first real exposure to the game outside of a video that I'll have coming out in the soonish nearest future, basically I just want to go over where we're at, our starting point, and where we'll be developing from here. So before I actually go over any of the systems, I've always found it's best to do a sort of look-see at what's actually going on. So let me get, no, not that. Let me get, I wonder if this could do it. Yeah, that works. And then we'll just see, center it. So, AstroPhysher. This is the game that I've been working on as of recently, and I guess we'll go into a bit of a backstory and everything that I've created up to this point, and how game development has been going for me, because those of you that know and have been around here on the channel know that I started back in about December. My son was born in October, late October, so basically all of November, and for a large majority of December, my time was just sort of taken up with that, but I did try to learn coding in the here's and there's whenever I got a free opportunity. So I've developed a couple of games now, published 2. Really, there's probably 2 more that should be pushed out to publishing, just for the sake of resume, portfolio kind of stuff. But yeah, this is my current project and what I'm hoping to be an actual full release, so that way I can have a full release on my portfolio as well. AstroPhysher. For now, these buttons don't work, but again, you don't really need a quit button whenever you're starting out. You just close out, you know, it's debug. So when you hit start, you're brought to your main scene. We have our little character here. I do plan on adding character customization, hence why the movements are kind of rudimentary, because the easier the movements, the easier it is for me to attach all kinds of different clothing options, right, for people to choose and use and all that good stuff. Now, the basis for AstroPhysher is, of course, that it's a space fishing game. Essentially, the player spawns on a large, we'll call it like a spaceship meets cruise ship, right? And the idea is that you sort of wake up from cryo sleep on this ship, and then your journey sort of unfolds from there. So we have our lovely companion Walter here, and if we walk up and press E, we'll get some dialogue. Hello, and welcome aboard the SS Reliant, Honored Civilian. I'm Walter, the ship's AI assistant. Since this is your first time waking from cryo sleep, you're probably still tired and will want to take things slow. So Walter is going to be kind of like the, I don't want to call him the main NPC, but he is going to be your main buddy here in the beginning, as he is kind of the guiding hand, telling you where to go, where to look, congratulating you, introducing different story aspects, and all of that such. I recommend taking a dip in the infinity pool located on the leisures and activities floor, number 4. For any further inquiries, feel free to ask me anything. Oh dear, it appears the main system shut down. I've lost access to all computer systems, in which case you should check the ship's manual. The manual is located at the front desk. So you walk up and you talk to Walter. He gives you a little bit of backstory. The ship's obviously having some power issues, and he is instructing you on how to sort of assist yourself within this emergency situation. So you walk over to the desk and you get this nice little prompt to open the ship's manual. And it says, welcome to the AISM, the All-Inclusive Ship Manual. This will be your guide to managing and maintaining everything on board the ship. If anything should happen, please refer to this manual for assistance. So this is kind of your tutorial desk, your help station, whatever you want to call it, right? You can click on different aspects, scroll up and down, And as you unlock new mechanics and new aspects of the game, this will sort of fill out with more information and more menus, right? More dialogue, whatever you want to call it. So this is sort of how you learn how to play the game and actually interact with it. And of course, I could have done the tutorial through Walter, but I feel like keeping him as a separate character, his own entity, his own being, allows for him to actually develop further past just being, a tutorial. So after that, we just have basically what will be the lobby of the ship, right? And the player will have to get here through some means whenever we start off, or maybe he or she does just spawn up. But yeah, so we have a nifty little poster here, GC, that stands for Galactic Choice. That's going to sort of be the overarching company in the game, if you will, the supplier for everything. We have some wonderful bookshelves, which honestly, this is my own custom work, so I should probably add some like shadows to the back or the side here. A few lights, and it's just a very rudimentary lobby. You can, walk in here and access the ship manual from the back as well. And then we have some closed and locked doors, as you'll see here. We have 2 on the back side and 1 on the front side. So the idea is this will sort of be your main hub for when you're going to the collector, or when you're transitioning to other parts of the ship, which of course you will unlock through, different means of progression. So if we pop out to the collector, you'll see we have a very rudimentary scene here, but it serves its purpose, and that is it shows you sort of the aspects of the game and the elements that we're trying to develop and improve upon. So we have random space fish that'll fly around. You can load a harpoon gun and try to hit them, reel them in. Once you capture a fish, you can pull up your cargo and see that you have a void skipper eye. So the fish we just caught was a void skipper. And we'll probably have, might have caught that one through my inventory screen. And we have, a couple fish already loaded in here and a couple of them already created. You can also take out a mining laser and break rocks and get your standard sort of minerals and resources that you would get from mining rocks in other games. So copper, iron, gold, all that kind of stuff. The trash can doesn't currently work, and obviously you can tell the mouse still activates the aiming cursor when we get too far over on the screen. So there's a lot of quote-unquote bugs in the game and underdeveloped portions, and that's because, well, it's still very much in development. That being said, if we catch a few more of these void skippers here, we might be able to go check out our crafting system. Let me see if we have enough here. Piece of copper and 3 void skipper tails, so that should be enough. We'll return to the ship, and you'll notice Walter will now have different dialogue here. So if we greet him again, hey, congratulations on your first catch. Your contribution to the community is greatly appreciated. Remember, a catch for you is a catch for us all. And that'll sort of be, further explored as the story goes on. Don't forget to take your catch to the engineering bay, where you'll be able to make full use of the resources. The scientists assigned to that sector should be able to help you. If you can't find a scientist nearby, simply check the beginner's guide located at the entrance of the engineering bay. It will give you a good place to start. Oh, and remember, some extraterrestrials will provide food and water, while others will be useful crafting materials. The things you and the other colonists create will produce the tools and tech for us all to survive. So this dialogue here actually reveals a lot more about the game, right? You're not the only one on the ship. Other people will be joining you in the future, and they can even access the same systems in which you can access. And so that's where the second half of the game comes in, right? The first half, the very upfront, very obvious, is that it is a space fishing game. You go out into your little collector, you shoot fish, you mine rocks. Very peaceful, and it's supposed to be a very casual sort of game. The second half of the game is going to be more of like a colony / simulation management, where you manage the other colonists, assign them to jobs, and they sort of carry out tasks that maybe you don't want to. Maybe you don't like the fishing aspect of the game and you only want to focus on colony building or world building, whatever. Then you can assign a colonist to the collector, and they will gather materials over, X amount of time, and it'll be, XYZ varied. So that's sort of the idea with basically how the overall game will end up playing out and working in sort of the gameplay loop there within. You'll go to the collector, collect some materials for the day, craft a few items, maybe decorate your ship, sell some things to Galactic Choice, right? Because again, they are the overarching sort of mother company that funds everything. And yeah, just continue to build up, try to make sure everyone in the colony survives and stays happy. Now, Walter also has some ambient dialogue, so if we approach him and we've already been through all the story bits, he'll say, Galactic Choice has made sure to provide you with the latest and greatest in spacer technology. You'll be well protected and well cared for. At Galactic Choice, your future matters as much as ours. And that's sort of going to be a recurring motto for them. Your future matters as much as ours. Because again, it is a big conglomeration, a big corporation. And obviously we all know sort of it's nice to poke satire at these larger corporations in games. So that's sort of what we're going for there. And you'll notice after we made our first catch and we came down here, we talked to Walter. He says, hey, go to the engineering bay. Well, now we have a door that is open, and to the engineering bay we go. We walk right in. Yes, the transition is not that smooth. Yeah, a lot of things need polish, but this is going to essentially be your crafting room where you incinerate your ores to smelt them down and all that. But for the time being, we have a simple crafting system here. Different tabs that have different options, right? You have your tools and resources in that regard. You have your food, maybe your drink. And this will end up being furniture, though now it's just recycling previous sprites. Sorry, wanted to change that song. It was just a little too intense for me. So yeah, we can click here and we see we only needed actually 2 void skipper tails, and I think that's actually a piece of iron, so we may not be able to craft this because I think we only have, yeah, we only have copper. So let's run back out to the collector really quick, and just so we go through this real quick, this will be your personal player information, how much money you have, maybe how long you've played the game, you know, general player stats. And I like this. This is sort of like your little menu, so to speak, your inventory, all that kind of nice stuff. And it's in a log, which is on a tablet, and I feel like it's very on theme with that, right? You can check your cargo to see what all is in there, right? So you can sort of manage it from wherever. You don't have to keep going back to the collector just to get to your cargo. You'll have quests that you can track based on ones you need to do and the ones that are completed ready to turn in. When you hover a quest, it'll pop up all the information about it over on the right, maybe a quick little description about what you need to do, and possibly, you know, what the reward could be. Then we have basically a character menu, right? So it'll tell you a little bit about the character, what NPC type they are. Some will be strong, some will be smart, some will be technical. So, you know, you can assign them to different roles. Walter's just a stand-in. You won't actually be able to assign him to any roles, at least as of right now. I don't have any plans of implementing that, but, you know, the future could change, obviously. It'll tell you maybe their favorite item or something they like or favorite activity. This is very rudimentary, but you get the idea. It'll be a screen for checking up on all the statuses of all your colonists, so you can make sure that they're happy and not upset. Next up, we have ship stats, and this is going to be pretty interesting because as you hover and as you select each portion or each sector of the ship, it's going to display different information down here. So obviously it doesn't work currently, but as of right now, we're hovering over the thrusters. So if we were to click it, this would be the engineering bay. It would show us the speed of the ship, maybe its cargo capacity, you know, things along that nature. If I go up to the cockpit, maybe it tells us if we have piloting currently enabled or if we've, you know, unlocked it, and maybe it'll tell us how many total crew members we have, or I guess that would be sort of down here in the cabins, right? Total crew and that kind of stuff. And then last but not least, we'll have our settings where you can go in and, you know, check on and off, background music, all that good stuff. Another feature that I think is going to be pretty cool is, so currently when you start in the game, obviously the main systems are all kind of down. And so we're not going to have any signal on this logbook. Once we return power to the ship and sort of repair those systems, this will go away. We'll get a little, you know, like an antenna bar, that kind of thing. And some additional features will sort of unlock within your log. Like maybe at that point you can start actually managing your cargo from your logbook. That's weird. I've not seen that bug before where it duplicates everything in your inventory. So obviously that'll be something that I have to look at, and it looks like it does it every time I open it. Yeah, so that is a logbook specific bug. And if we keep doing it, man, we can just really go nuts with it. I wonder if that also copied it out here, or if it simply copied it in there. Okay, yeah, so it didn't actually duplicate the items that we have available in our inventory. It was simply reprinting them to the screen. So that's kind of nice to know. Anyways, as I said, we do need a piece of iron if we want to craft the harpoons, which eventually I plan on making the harpoons an item in your inventory, so you won't be able to catch fish if you don't have any harpoons, so you'll kind of have to be wary and be careful there. And that was another piece of copper, unfortunately. The rocks spawn like once every 5 to 10 seconds, something like that, so there'll probably be tweaks, and there'll be different levels of rocks and different kinds of fish as we move forward. Wow, I'm just having no luck with the iron here. Let's see. 4. And maybe whenever we mine a rock or we capture a fish, a little pop-up should appear in the top right or the bottom right, something to let you know what material you actually got, so you don't have to keep opening your cargo screen, checking it out, and closing it back down. Honestly, I didn't think it'd be this hard to get a piece of iron. It is uncommon, but not rare or anything. We'll give it 1 or 2 more goes. 1 or 2 more goes, and then we'll call it quits. And you'll just have to trust me that the crafting system is like everything else in the game, semi-working. There we go. Working enough to be representative, at least, right? That's sort of the point, and the whole idea behind the rough draft of the game is to showcase what all features will be included. So when we click on our harpoon, we have here what will end up being the worth of the item. So if you want to sell it to Galactic Choice, you know, you can just sell it off, make harpoons and sell them. Maybe you don't need all the ones that you crafted. It'll tell you the weight, because obviously if you're hurling through space, you don't want to weigh your ship down too much. Otherwise, you'll start to accrue different types of mass. I guess your momentum would be greater. I don't want to dive into all the fancy schmance of it, but essentially the weight's just going to stop your ship from moving, at least as of now. If I want to dive into more realistic aspect or approach with that mechanic, you know, we can take liberties in the future to change things up. Now, currently there are no sounds in the game, but generally whenever we hit the craft button, there will be some kind of hammer, you know, ding, ding, ding. It'll go off. And then you can see here we have our harpoons in our inventory. You can hover items and it'll let you know what it is. This is a void skipper tail, harpoons, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of all of the aspects that we have right now within the game that we're working with. And now that we've seen that, let's take a look at all of the behind the scenes aspects, all the code, all that. And remember, I've been coding in Godot since like January, so not even the full time that I've been back into game development, because I've started out on Unreal Engine, so the code may be a little rough, a little harsh as far as its execution, but it works, and that's what clearly matters, right? Minus that with the inventory, obviously that's a bug. So first and foremost, we have our main menu, which it looks like there's a lot going on here, but once we start to break things down individually, you'll realize that Godot is a very simple and very beginner-friendly program. So we have our main node here, which I typically use just a basic control node. The basic nodes that I consider basic nodes are the highest tier of a singular node group. This is my own sort of personal preference. So for a main scene, like a main active scene in the game, like this one here, which is our main, you know, playing area, or one of them, I like to use a base node because these can contain a 2D node as well as a container, which is just good for UI elements, right? So, or a control container, sorry. So yeah, I just like to keep things very separated. If it's just the menu, then I just go for a control. If it's just a 2D scene, then we just use node 2D. But I always like to have that parent that is sort of just a blank slate to put all of my code into and to connect everything in a grand overarching scheme. Because the way that you code in Godot, it's typically easier to grab the children from a parent than vice versa, right? Grab a parent from a child. So that being said, let's take a quick little look. We have our main node, and this is, you know, basically everything there. I turn it off, it turns off. This main menu parallax background is exactly as its name implies, and it is the parallaxed background here. So if we hit play with the title gone, you'll see that the stars just sort of move from the right side to the left side, and how we have that happening is the parallax background node here set to a parallax layer underneath with a texture rect below that. And then we just have a very large image. We take it and we mirror it by basically its entire size. So we have a 1920 by 1080 picture here, and we just flip it another 1920. So that means essentially whenever it gets to the end, it's just going to take this one and place it here. When it gets to the end of that, it'll take this one and place it there, and so on and so forth. So it gives you this continual feeling. If we click on this little piece of paper here, we'll go into the coding and see that, yeah, it's actually really incredibly simple. We have our parallax background that's being grabbed on ready, right? And then we just say move it to the left 50 pixels times delta. Delta is simply the amount of time in between one frame's end of loading and the next frame, right? So, and it basically just keeps everything on scale. So if I have a 60 FPS computer or a 30 FPS computer or a 2000 FPS computer, it'll always move at the same pace regardless. So that's going to be the menu. Again, I already told you the buttons don't work, so the only thing we have here in the menu is just this on start button pressed, yada yada yada. Technically I can delete these, but who knows when I may need them in the future, so I just like to leave them in there. The only thing it'll do is run a little debug down here and say, hey, delta is never used. You know, if this is intended, then put an underscore in front of it so we don't keep checking for it. And I mean, that's fine, but it's not actually going to do anything in my current debug. And whenever I clean up the game, then we'll go back and say, oh, okay, you know what? I never used this delta. I never used this ready. Let's delete it. But until that time, I like to have things organized in pretty much the same manner across all of my scripts, because then it's easy to read, easy to find, all that good stuff. So from the main menu, if you'll remember, whenever we open the game here and we hit start, we're immediately positioned into our interior ship scene. Now, obviously, when character creation comes along, we'll have it jump to the character creation screen, but for now, we're not going to worry about that. We're going to hop on over to our interior ship scene, and we're going to start breaking this down. Though it may seem a bit more complicated, it's really not. So as I explained, we have our base node here, and this is just going to be a container. So that way I can grab any of the children at any point and never have a headache of, oh, I'm here and I need to grab the ship manual container to interact with the player. Then let me grab the parent and then grab back over to the ship manual container. Nope, since I'm here, we can just grab down to both and have instances ready to rock and roll. So first and foremost, we have our tile map container. For those of you that are unfamiliar with a tile map, it's essentially just a laid out grid. I don't know if you can see how my mouse cursor moves, and it highlights an entire square. This might actually be a better representation here. So it's just a grid of generally textures, right? That you can sort of add to your scene. So if I come back into tile map and I select this picture here, I can, well, that's background, hold on. I can place it there, and now it's within our world, right? It could be a little floor mat, it could be a picture on a wall, whatever, you know, whatever we want it to represent or whatever we want it to fulfill as far as art-wise goes. So I've used this tile map to build out the objects that you see, as well as the walls, the floors, the background. Everything is part of the tile map. And here's my personal little tile map that I made to make the doors make more sense, because my character is a bit taller than the characters that go with this initial tile set, which it is copyright free to use, all that good stuff, so that's fine. But we will probably be making a slow trend towards custom made assets, right? Because I'm enjoying pixel art, and it's really not that difficult to sort of pick it up and do it 5-10 minutes, and then come back to it later, and again 5-10 minutes until you finally get to your finished product. So tile map is how we're showing everything, and if we were to turn this off, you can see everything immediately disappears minus Walter and these little blue shapes here. So in our player container, I actually have Walter. I'm thinking we're going to move him to the NPC container, but that'll come in the future, as right now it doesn't really matter. But yeah, he's just going to stand there. And technically we could open his scene and, you know, go into all the aspects of Walter, but we're going to hold off on that for just a minute as we sort of finish explaining the scene. So the blue circle that is around Walter is his detection area, right? So whenever the player walks in that, that's when it pops up the little yellow exclamation point above his head. So if we pull this back up, let's see. That's not working. Ah, there we are. So yeah, if we walk up to Walter, you see the little exclamation point appears. And once we're there, we can activate him to have our dialogue be read out. If we walk away, we can still activate, but it's not going to pop up Walter, and that's because we're not within the detection area. All right. So that's that. Walter fully explained. Now, these little blue shapes that you keep seeing, these are collision shapes, and essentially just read when the player enters them, or read when anything enters them, really, or they interact with any other object within the world of the game. Ours are currently set to read when the player enters, do X task. When the player leaves, do Y task. So currently it reads something like this. When the player enters this little blue box, pop up a little, info box above the player that says where they're going. If the player hits E, or the activate key, while in the green box, then they'll go to where they were talking about. All right, so that's all of that done. We have all of the aspects completed. And again, the side container over here seems a lot more daunting until you go and break it down. So the area container is simply the container for all the areas. So this first one is for the collector, and if our player goes and stands in that, you'll see that it pops up a little message here. Let me try and get this working. There we go. So if I walk over to this door, it'll say to the collector, and that's because the player, his little hitbox is like right here at his waist. That way, you can walk sort of in front of stuff and yet still not behind stuff, so that's fine. All right, and that's pretty much it with that. Here, I guess we'll go over to the ship front, which seems to have a bit more nonsense going on, but this was one of the first places I started, and so it'll be a nice little place for us to interact with everything. We could go over the code right now, but honestly, I feel like it's better to go over it as we use it, rather than here's all the code all at once, right? So back out to the ship front. You'll see we have our scene here, and again, it's very much like the main menu scene in the fact that we have a parallax background, and that's what sort of gives the ship movement, or pseudo movement, right? As we're here, it's moving along, right? You're traveling through space. That amount that it moves will probably differ as you unlock new aspects of the game. You can potentially speed up, in which case maybe the fish fly by faster or despawn sooner, and the rocks sort of hurl through space faster towards your ship as well. And you'll notice whenever we were out in the ship front, you never took any damage for any rocks or fish hitting the boat. And I think that's, as of right now, how it's going to stay, because I don't want the point of this to be, let me go out and refill, everything every single day. I want you to be able to do what you need to do and enjoy what you're doing. So all right. I don't want to go into all of this too much because, like I said, it's got a fair amount of code, but I do want to actually go through how these systems work. I'm just thinking it's going to be a bit overwhelming if we do it all at once. So we'll go over how the scene sort of functions. So you come out here and you collect your stuff, or you have a colonist come out here and collect their stuff. When the colonists collect, they're not going to be, you won't have to come out here and watch them collect. They'll just sort of do it residually. But when you come out here, you'll have different tools, and I would like to add more than just the harpoon and the current laser mining gun. But we'll get to those, in future devlogs and whatnot. So we have the fish container, which will contain all of the fish that spawn into the scene, and this way we can always activate or grab them, or whatever we need to do with all of the fish. Space object container, this is going to be the rocks that fly towards your ship, the asteroids, whatever you want to call them. Tool container, this one's a pretty big one because it does have all of the tools, and it has all of the mechanics for changing them out, how they fire, how they interact with the world around them, essentially. So very, very important there. Oh, that's literally just the ship texture. Okay. So I guess we'll move on to the engineering bay, because that's pretty much it. You have your buttons like you normally do. I guess we can go over the inventory system. But basically all this does is whenever we click the inventory button, it pops up another screen, or another scene rather. And that scene then populates everything from the player's inventory. So pull this up. Here is the inventory screen. And essentially all that's happening is whenever we press that inventory button over on the ship front, it's popping up this screen. It's lowering the cover. It's displaying everything that you have in here. And then it's re-raising it, right? Here's our dialogue box, which I think I've done a pretty decent job with dialogue, simply because I have made it very modular, right? So the way the dialogue works is through, let me find my resources, is through the dialogue box, but then, I'm in scenes, duh. Then you have dialogue broke down by which NPC says it. You have the total overall dialogue, right? Broken down into each section or sector, whatever you want to call it. And then we have the dialogue set, which is the entire range of dialogue that'll be said within that talking session, right? So if you walk up after you catch your first fish, then he goes through the whole congratulations, take it by the engineering bay. But he's not going to do that before you catch something first. Alright. I think that's about it there. That is his static body, which is just a sprite with a collision shape all over it, and then body centered. It makes more sense for him to have like a bigger range for speaking into. I guess the best way to explain it is this is his body, that you interact with, and this is his body, or sorry, opposite of that. This is his body that your player character interacts with, sort of in the physical world, can't move into, and this is the interaction range for the body. So both of them are technically shapes and are collision shapes, but they deliver differently on how they execute. I don't know if that makes sense. Sometimes explaining code is a bit harder for me than explaining video games, at least in like understandable means. So That's Walter, all done. The player is just simply a player character 2D with a sprite, collision shape, a camera that follows him around. And then we have our UI that the player is going to interact with, and that is, you know, the dialogue scenes with the pop-up message container. And that way the dialogue always hits in the exact same place, regardless of where the character may be on screen. Ship manual container does exactly what it says. And that is when you open the ship manual, you get this. This container sort of loads in that scene that we saw previously. Let's go and skip this. All right, and then log, animation, all of that good stuff. The engineering bay is probably one of the most simplistic as of right now. We just have the area container containing the crafter's area to sort of signify to the player. Here you can press activate and, you know, you'll open that crafting menu up. And yeah, I think for the rest of them, it'd probably be wise to just go back through our scenes. So we went through dialogue. Our main scenes are basically just exactly as the name implies, the main scenes the player will be interacting with. Menus, did we go over all this? Craftable, cargo, inventory, logbook, main menu. Nice. Yeah, so we actually made it all the way through in a pretty good time today. I wanted to keep this one rather short because, again, it's just sort of an introduction to the game and going through some general ideologies, which I don't know if you can tell, but I oftentimes get distracted when I am coding because I'm like, oh, this aspect or this element could be really cool. Let me try and make a mental note of that. And it usually happens while I'm in the middle of another thought, and it sort of hits me with paralysis, you know what I mean? Where I'm just like, stun lock. I was in the middle of a thought, and then boom, immediately switch over. So Walter, we went through all of that. And yeah, I'm excited to share the story with everybody because it is going to hopefully develop and flourish in a very natural and satisfying way, right? Anyways, thanks everybody for joining me here today on this first live stream. It is a rather short one. Hey, Blairy, it has been a while. Not doing so much Minecraft nowadays, just coding and whatnot. But I hope you and the family are all right. I don't know if you're still working at the store there, but if so, hope it's going well for you. I am actually going to go ahead and get out of here because this is my last off day before returning to my 9 to 5, as it were. So I'm gonna go enjoy the rest of that. But I hope y'all enjoyed this quick little deep dive into AstroPhysher and this sort of setting the scene for what we'll be working on and everything that we're starting out with, yada yada yada, right? Thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like on the video or on the live stream. Comment down below if you have anything you'd like to add or notes you've made, or maybe a different iteration of what you expect AstroPhysher to be or what you might want from a space fishing game, as I'm always open to new ideas, new concepts, new theories. Of course, I can only be exposed to those if, you know, I go out and read them or if y'all share them with me. So speaking of sharing, share the video or the live stream if you did enjoy and you know somebody that it may assist them as far as maybe figuring their own stuff out or just giving them a little glimpse of what you can do with Godot. Thanks again, everybody. I'll see you next time. I'm not quite sure when our next live stream will be, but we'll try and roll out some steady videos semi-regularly moving forward with this project. So until then, I hope you all have a great and fantastic day in life. And yeah, peace out.